are listening to the Starter Girls podcast with Jennifer Loading, where extraordinary decisions produce extraordinary results. These are my friends, these are your friends, and they are living the extraordinary. This episode is brought to you by Walt Mills Photographer with Glad Models Agency. If you are here in the Dallas or surrounding area and looking for some photography work, check out Walt Mills. You can learn more about him and his work at photosbywalt.com. All right, with that, we're going to get things started. Today is a great day to be brave. You might as well start now. You have the power to change your circumstances any day you decide. Let today be that day. Rise up, be amazing, be you, do you. All right, my friends, I'm super excited to welcome my guest to the show, Ann Tucker, and I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about her before I get this going. So Ann is the creator of Business Energetics and the Authentic Expression Test, transmitter of the Nine Angelic Frequencies Series, and a channel for angelic wisdom. And don't worry, I'm going to get her to explain this. Her work helps you see and understand your creative purpose and to express it through your work so that you not only feel fulfilled, seen, and appreciated, but you also unlock your success. Ann is helping redefine business for a spiritual age where the work we do becomes a conscious pathway to our spiritual development. Ann, I love this. So welcome to the Starter Girls Show.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Okay, so we're going to dive into this because, like I said, I read your bio and I'm like, what is all this? And I know you and I talked off camera, so I have a little bit of background on you and I've done a little research, but I know my audience is going to be like, what is she doing? So tell us a little bit about what this Business Energetics is, what you're doing, and who are these clients that you're serving?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I should say, and I like the contrast between saying, yes, angelic wisdom, and there's all that stuff. I grew up in the corporate world. I have a very blue chip background from that perspective. And the work that I do now grew out of that corporate experience. So I was an executive coach working in the largest companies in the world, actually working with some of the top executives, people that names you would know. And through that process, what business energetics is a way of understanding your way of being creative in the world. And it comes through how is it that you express that creativity, how you think and make decisions. And I started developing it back when I was in that corporate world and I was working with these coaching clients, and I would be looking at deeply understanding them and how they worked, and then understanding those, starting to see patterns. And that turned into what I realized what I was looking at was actually what I call now their soul type. It was their pattern, their method of expressing creative energy into the world. And it gave me access to all kinds of incredible information about who they are, what they do, and how they work in the world. But at the same time, I was having this spiritual awakening, and these two things came together. And so a lot of the information that I package within Business Energetics is channeled information. It is sort of what I call source wisdom. And so now I offer that. Not only I'm still working with my CEO clients, but I'm also helping small businesses. I help specifically those clients, what I call solo practitioners, people who are offering a service to the world. And they use Business Energetics to understand how to work with all 7 different aspects of creation. So you have your own soul type energy, which is the main way that we create in the world. And most of us think that there's sort of we think that everybody thinks the same way that we do. The truth is that your way of thinking is specific, and there's 7 sort of different general models of thinking, different models of creation. So each of us has our one, and then when you're trying to create something, you will end up bumping into things that you really don't know what to do, right? You'll have pieces of your business that you avoid or that you don't like doing. That's what Business Energetics helps you to do, helps you understand how to work with all 7 different aspects of creation.
I love this. And I know you and I, when we talked off, you were like, I know which one you are. So I'm totally interested in this. If you're open to just sharing a teeny little bit, you don't have to tell me everything, because I know we're all in this to do our business and do our thing. And I know there's a lot to this that you can't even touch upon right now. But are you open to telling us just a teeny bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I was saying, so there's these 7 different types. And each one embodies a different aspect of creation. So it's almost like if you think of every problem that you come across as like a hallway with 7 different doors. There are 7 different ways to access the problem, and each of us has one door that's our favorite, the door that we go into all the time. So that is your way of addressing the problem, and it makes you particularly good at solving certain types of problems at certain phases of the problem, of a problem unfolding. So being in the right time and the right place for your soul type can be magic in terms of you really excelling. So let's talk about which type yours is. So, and to do that, I can ask you just a couple of quick questions, and it's all around how you think and make decisions. So in general, I'm assuming you make decisions faster than others. Am I correct?
I'm pretty
Okay,
quick
great.
decision maker.
And yeah. The second question is, in general, if you are going to bump into someone you know, are you going to, and they ask you, how was your day or how have you been? Are you going to tell them just kind of like what you've been, like the facts and the details about what you've been doing? Are you going to go more into the emotional experience of it, about how you've been feeling or what's been bothering you? Or so are you, are you more emotionally open?
Well, I'm probably more factual most of the time. I would probably say factual most of the time.
Factual, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And then last question, and you're going to love both of these, but you have to pick just one. So between these two, which one inspires you most? Developing a plan or getting into action?
Getting into action. I don't even have to think about that one. I like the plan part because that gets you where you bit, but I'm like, let's go.
Okay, great. So you are what I call an experimenting soul. And so what this means is that your specifics, where you come in the whole process, is that you are able to bring momentum, is that you can get things going from 0 to 100 miles an hour in 60 seconds flat. And so the way that you do that is that where most people, if you think about the way most people make a decision, is that they will go through they'll come up with, they'll look at the problem, they'll understand the problem, and they'll start shopping for solutions. They might find lots of different solutions and compare one to the other. That's not really how you do it. What you do it, and each of us has, I'm going to talk about how your inspiration, how your intuition comes into this, because each of us has our intuition come in a different part of our problem solving process. So for you, you will look at really high quality information. So you'll be really particular about the data that you get. You're going to look at it, and your intuition will come in and show you what are the 2 or 3 pieces of information that really matter. Like you're able to see that, and it's like you're just sort of intuitively guided to this matters and that matters, and the rest doesn't really matter at all. You can ignore it. So from that, you're like, okay, given these 2 most important pieces of information, then here is plan A. Here's the thing that I think is most likely to work. And I'm not going to do a lot of thinking. I'm just going to start it, because the only way to know is to see how the plan connects with reality, right? You're just going to immediately put it into action and trust that by doing it, you will see if it works or not. And then you will adapt and change along the way. And you always have plan B in your pocket. Does that sound like you?
Pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. I don't have to listen. I'm laughing about this because when I'm doing things, I always say I'm guns a-blazing. Like, I'm just figure like you're going to have problems, but I'm just like, I'm going to work through them. I'm going to figure it out. If it doesn't work, I'll try another trick.
And see, that's the beauty of what you do. And you think that that's so normal. Like, oh yeah, I just do this thing. That's magic. Like, other people don't do that. Other people get super hung up when things don't, they get so worried about planning on the front end to make sure they want to have all those, like, what if it goes this way? And what if it goes that way? And they want to think through all those scenarios and I have plans in place and have, like, that's how most people do things. And that's not how you do it. You just jump in. You're like, yeah, I can adapt and I can change and I can turn on a dime. And that's who you are. And that's momentum. And that's what allows you that ability to sort of get things started. And think about how valuable that is. So people with your soul type are phenomenal in emergency situations. So like first responders would need your soul type, right? Industries that have really fast turnaround times, like a tech industry, would be your soul type does extremely well in that environment, because it's like you can't sit around and overthink things. You got to move because the next version is coming out tomorrow. So anyway, so that is your specific gift, and it colors what and how you create in the world. So if you were going to offer a service in the world, think of it this way. If you offer a service in the world, so you could have 5 people that learn the same modality or the same practice, right? You could have 5 different accountants or 5 different energy healers or whatever it is. And the way you express those skills is going to be specific to your soul type because of the fact that you like to get things moving. So you're going to come in and you're going to be like, let me just assess it. I'm just going to scan it. I'm going to tell you what you need to do. Now go do it. There you go. You're done.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas other people are going to be like, no, let's sit and let's talk and I need to know all about you. And that's not you. You're like, nope, do it, done.
Yeah. It's so funny because it's so true. Well, and I've done so many of these different little tests, and, I always talk about the point A to point Z. Like when I'm working with people, and that is one of the things, like I do get frustrated a lot of times with working with people because we'll get into a situation and they keep talking. And I'm like, and all the time that we've spent talking about this, I could have already gone around about 10 hurdles and we'd have been done with this by now, or we would have found the resources. I would have gathered 10 more people and we would have figured this out. So I do have a very difficult time. And one of the things, it's so interesting when you talk about that, because when this whole pandemic first started, like I'm a problem solver. So when this pandemic first started, like I was freaking out because I couldn't solve anything. Like I was really freaking out. And the only way that I could navigate I guess maybe my own sanity was I had to go to work. And so I got really active in the podcast. I got really involved in doing what I felt like I could control, because for me, sitting around and like hashing that out every day, like I can't do that. So that's totally 100%. And then on the other side of that, like I said, when I'm working with people, especially even coaching, I have to remind myself that not everybody moves like that. So me coming in and saying, we've talked about this like 10 times now, I'm thinking we need to go to work.
Time to take action.
Yeah. I'm like, all that thinking and sorting and piling information, like I'm getting overwhelmed with all the information. Can we just go?
Right.
But I can see where this is so beneficial. And I love that because you're quick. You can pick that up very quickly and know how to navigate that and tell people how to be effective. So
it's awesome. Magic, particularly for someone like you who is a coach, is that by understanding this model and understand, it's really yes, there is value in understanding each person's process. Like once you understand their thought process, you understand how they create. And that's sort of the first level. And that's hugely valuable. But then the next piece beyond that is understanding the picture and understanding where they fit within that picture. How do they relate to everybody else? And how do they relate to the process of creation? And that's that next level, which I think it brings it to a whole nother level of understanding, which is incredibly useful. Because like I said, it is like one of the stories I like to tell is if you look at these soul types, and if you look at multi-generational families, and remember how I said that knowing your soul type helps you to understand where and when you can be most effective. Like what part of the problem are you best at solving? And if you look at these multi-generational families that are in a business for hundreds of years, you can see how the business changes and when does it succeed and when does it fail based on the soul types of the people who are running it. So one that has your soul type is, have you heard of the Vanderbilt family?
Yes.
So they were originally like railroad tycoons and one of the wealthiest families in the United States. And they started out way back when with this guy, they called him the Commodore. And he was a soul type just like you. He was an experimenting soul type. And he was born with nothing, was born penniless. And he borrowed money from his mother to start a rafting, like carrying cargo on a raft on a river. And he started with one raft, and then his strategy was he would go to other people who had that were running cargo on a certain route, and he would play chicken. He would go up and he would undercut their prices and do it for less money until they couldn't. Basically, they either had to pay to get rid of them, or he would buy them out. They would go under, and he would buy them out. And he discovered this strategy, which was all about like develop a plan, put it into action, make it happen now, adapt on the fly, right? This was his whole strategy. It was playing chicken. And it was all about that, taking action. So he did it once and it worked so well. He did it again and again. And he went from a raft to a boat, to a fleet of boats, to railroads. And then it just grew and grew and grew. Always the same strategy every single time. And it was incredibly successful. And he had the oldest son who was meant to take over the business. The problem was that the Commodore didn't like his oldest son. It's not that he so much didn't like him, but he thought that guy can never be successful. His name was William. And he said, William doesn't have what it takes, because William was not an experimenting soul. He was a coaching soul, which is the opposite soul type. And William was much more, he just didn't have that fighter instinct. He didn't have that get in there and scrap it out and do it, and get into action. He wasn't like that. And so the Commodore was just, yeah, he disliked William so much. He actually sent him way off, like out on the farm. He bought him a farm way out of town, thought he's never going to take over the business because he just can't hack it. So when the Commodore finally died and William came back into town and took over the business, it just so happened that railroads were evolving and they were becoming regulated. And there was all of this in terms of what the skills were required at the time. There were all of these labor unions forming and all of them were striking. And in comes William with his wonderful coaching energy, and he's a fabulous diplomat. His railroad is the only one that didn't have strikes, right? He is the only one that was able to negotiate and figure things out. And he took that enormous fortune and quadrupled it and became the wealthiest man in the world.
Wow.
So, and if those two men had traded places, both would have failed, right?
Yeah.
Different place, different time, different stage of the business, and they would have failed.
Yeah. No, that's so
Isn't that
good.
amazing?
Yeah, that's a good story. It is. Absolutely. Yeah, there's so much goodness to this. I love it. And thanks for kind of breaking that down, because I think that that's a thing. I think so many people, I think this even gets back to so many people in, careers, they don't really know how they work. It's almost like once you figure out, and I talked about this because when I was in my network marketing company, one of the girls that I used to work with, one of my colleagues, we had kind of figured out where we were good when we partnered up. Like, we figured out what she was probably more that coaching type, the nurturing, and I was the person that was going to come in and make action. And so we had kind of worked out this system where when we would work together, if we had somebody that was a quick decision maker like me, easy, I can just go in, I get them done, I get them excited. We're going to go. We're going to be excited. Let's go. We got this. We're going to jump in the car. We're going to win. Let's go. If I had somebody that needed more information, not that I can't provide the information, I'm very detailed. I just don't like doing all that. That makes me crazy. Because we're sorting, and I'm thinking all that time we've been sorting papers, like we could have worked this out. You could have been making money already. So I would let her go and talk to them. And then once she would get the person kind of where they were about to make that decision, then I could come in and I could get that decision. Like we could get there, So we joked about this all the time. And it took us a while to figure this out, but it worked out very nicely because we knew where our strengths were, and we knew how to navigate that in a partnership type of deal in a business situation. So I could definitely see how this could be effective, because I think a lot of people don't really know, like they just don't get it. And they think there's something wrong with them or there's something wrong with somebody else,
Right. Exactly. Oh, and that is the funniest thing is when people, like I said, everybody thinks that everyone else thinks the same way that they do. Right. Because we can only see inside our own head. And even then we actually don't see our decision process, because it's something we always do, is just do it naturally. And we think everybody else thinks the same way that we do. The process is invisible to us. So when other people behave in a way that doesn't make sense to us, we have no framework for it. We're just like, they're not any good. As a matter of fact, one of the amazing things to me in working with executives is that the higher you go in an organization, the more likely I found it is that people will hire and want to work with people who have the same soul type that they are. And I think what it is that when the stakes are high, people want to remove possibilities of error. So if you have an executive who has been really successful with their soul type, they said, I know this way works, the way I do it works. I'm going to find other people that work the same way I do, because my way is effective. And if other people, like if they inherit a team and half the team is other soul types, they'll be like, okay, that person just doesn't get it. It's sort of like the Commodore and William. They're like, that guy can't cut it. He doesn't have the skills. And I have seen, it's been so interesting to see in large organizations, really, really big companies that are then merged with another company. Like if at one point the company culture is aligned with one soul type, and that particular soul type is getting promoted, is in all the positions of authority, and then the half of the team that isn't that soul type is like, man, they're not so good. They're in the outs. And then another company comes in and it merges and the culture shifts overnight because they're part of this other organization. All of a sudden the tables are turned. And the people who were on the outs are now on the ins because their soul type aligns with the new company culture. And it's all, you can see it like plain as day. If you understand the soul types, it takes all the guesswork out. You can call it before it ever happened. You can say that guy's in and that guy's out, and here's why.
That's so good. That's so good, Anne. Thank you. That's awesome. So this is so good. So I want to ask this question just because I love this question. So what do you love about being able to do this? What's the best part of all this?
The best part is definitely that what we're really talking about here, it goes way beyond decisions. It's about your soul type. There's a much deeper spiritual message behind all of this. And it's about our ability to create, which is our soul's expression. And
Yeah.
so, understanding that, like, that is the source of our fulfillment. And it's a big part of what our purpose is on earth, is to experience ourselves as creators. And so many people struggle with that. They end up in jobs that train their soul type out of them, right? People who end up
Yeah.
going into professions and they learn to be someone that they're not. And they never understand, why is it that I'm never happy in my work, or it's such a drudge, or like, fulfilling your specific way of expression is hugely important to personal fulfillment, right? And to fully expressing who you are as a soul. So that's the part that to me is the most exciting, because it has a much deeper and much richer context behind it. And yeah, you can stay at the top. You can stay. We can talk about it as decisions. We can talk about it as thought process. But where I get super interested is when we go to the next step and the next step, which is where we're really talking about who you are at the deepest level.
Yeah, you have me so intrigued right now. All right, we could talk about this for a while because it is so true. I mean, you people do. They go into these careers and they think that if they keep keep plugging away, they're going to master this. And it is one of the things that I talk about because when I was in I was in the network marketing space for, this November would have been my 21st year that I'd been in that space.
Wow.
And one of the things that was crazy about that is I loved the idea of being an entrepreneur. And there were things that I loved about that field. And there were things that I absolutely hated. And even though I had success within those companies, I still always felt like I was swimming upstream. I always felt like I
Yeah.
was having to work hard. And because I'm so determined and persistent at things, I don't like giving up. I would just keep going and keep going. And I'm like, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to figure this out. But the thing
Yeah.
is, I had this light bulb moment. And I may have shared this with you off camera where I started doing a lot when I was going through my personal development, not so much maybe the soul type, but I think kind of some of that research where I was finding out what I
Yeah.
was really gifted at. And it was like one
Hmm.
day I'm sitting in there on my treadmill walking and I'm reading a book and all of a sudden this light bulb goes off in my head and I'm like, now I figured it out. I figured out what I'm good at and what I'm not good at and why I'm swimming upstream because I am trying to do something that I'm not really gifted at and I'm trying to make that work. And when I moved out of that space, and what's so interesting, Anne, is what I'm doing now is essentially a piece of what I've been doing all along. I've just
Yeah.
taken out the part I didn't like. The part that
Yeah.
was like wearing me out, and I brought in the part that I like. And so I think what you're doing is 100% spot on with people, and I
Yeah.
think that they need to hear it. So good stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so a couple of things I
Yeah.
want to ask you before I move into my fun. When you are going after something, because I know you've had to when you moved from corporate to where you are now, when you're going after
Yeah.
something, what does that mindset look like for you?
Oh gosh.
Now we're
For me,
shifting it on you now, not everybody
yeah.
else.
For me, the joy for me, my particular soul type, I am what I call an optimizing soul. And my joy comes in the creative part that happens at the very beginning, at taking something that's conceptual and birthing it, bringing it
Mm,
on to the earth plane, right? Like really making it tangible. And so when I'm going after something, it always starts with an inspired idea. I have to get, I come up with a problem. Like, what is it that I'm trying to solve? If it's a situation where I'm moving from corporate to working with individuals, working with small business, that's a problem to be solved. And I look at, once I feel the problem and I get inspired by that problem, and then I get, it's like a download that comes in, and everybody else who's out there who is the same soul type as me will know what I'm talking about here. It's
that's
like
so
you
awesome.
get this, it's like a vision that comes in, and it's so, you can see it, it's like it's so clear in your mind, it's like it's singing in your head, and that from that moment on, it's like you're in love with it and you have to make it happen. So that's how, for me, that's what it looks like for me when when I'm in that problem solving space, is I work with a problem until I find a pathway through. And it usually involves, reimagining it, seeing it from a new direction. That sort of, I love things that are unique and different and outside the box. That's what excites me. I love doing things like that. So yeah, so it's, and that's like with me developing, like when I was first working on developing the soul types, it was because originally I was part of a much larger executive development firm. And we were leaving that firm, and my partner and I were leaving that firm to start our own firm. And we needed to have our own IP. We needed to have our own methodology that we use. And I said, oh, well, I'll make one. And I used to be, way back when, I was a negotiator from Microsoft. So I had all this training and decision making. So that was sort of my natural way in. That's how I started thinking about it. So it really was, it came from a need and a problem. And then I got inspired, right? And then it came in like this download. There it is. So it's for me, that's one of the most fun parts of the whole process, is that creative piece of it.
I love it. I love that you kept saying the download. Like it's like this, it just comes. I have those downloads every once in a while, but I got to get into action and then they happen.
Yeah, there you go.
I get moving and I'll be, oh, there's a good idea. After I've messed up about 10 times, then the good idea comes and then we've got it figured out. But I just got to have I got to have a lot of like really bad mess ups and then that happens. So there's no glory in it if I'm not like, messing it up first. That's what I would say. I got to have a few of them in there. It makes it interesting for sure. So
well, I love that about your style. I love it that the, like, I think of all of the different soul types, yours is the best about like, there's no fear of failure, that it is failure is just something you can climb over on your pathway to success, which I think is a super cool mentality. And it's something I think that the rest of us aspire to, but don't embody as naturally as you do.
Yeah. I always talk about kind of like, I had somebody come on the show one day and she was talking about how when kids are little, how they're exploring, like when they learn to walk and they do all these things, they're learning to exploring. And then at some point as adults, we stop saying we're exploring and we say it's now failure. If we don't get it, it becomes failure.
Yes.
That's really, I go back to the exploring. I look at everything. I think of everything as there's always a lesson. There's always something to be gained from an experience, no matter whether you think you won at that experience, there's something, because when that happens, then I go, okay, this didn't work. What do I need to do differently next time to make it work?
Right.
That's how my brain computes. It just doesn't even go, oh, well, that just sucks. Stop. Now go back and crawl in your room. Like, I just can't think like that, because then I'm like, we're not solving anything. We got to keep going. So it comes naturally for me, but I also recognize that that is not something for everybody. So why do I do this podcast all the time? Because my thing is, hey, if I can show people that I can do this, maybe they can pick it up and find it, and it's not even if they do the podcast, but anything that they want to do. So I love all of this.
That's a really great point, by the way, is that part of the work that I'm doing is helping people to understand how to embody other soul types. So there's huge value in someone like you teaching people how to be in that mindset, particularly people who are trying to start their own businesses, is to understand how would they, like, looking at you and how you respond to failure, right? How do you respond to exploring? And for someone else to be inspired by that, even if it's not their natural soul type, they can step into it. In the same way that we get trained out of our soul type into other soul types, you can aspire to lean into, and I borrow traits from your soul type all the time in my business. And I would look at that and say, okay, I've got a problem. What I need is that. What would that person do right here? I'm going to do that too.
That's so great. You got me all like intrigued with this. I feel like we're going to have another conversation out of here so I can learn more about this. I'm like, this is so good, because this would be so good for like helping with like my clients and stuff that I'm working with and trying to navigate them. Cause like I said, I just automatically think, I'm like, why are we still talking? Let's just move. Like, I can get you making money. Like, I can get you doing something if we just go and stop talking, So good. All right. And in your words, how would you define success? What does that look like to you?
Oh gosh. I think there's all the traditional things of success in terms of your money or your clients, whatever, and those are the byproduct. I strongly believe that everything starts with your energy. And so for me, success is feeling good, right? Success is feeling good, feeling happy, feeling joyful. When I'm in a good space mentally, then my world reflects that back to me and everything else happens. So, and my definition of success changes over time. The things, my target changes all the time. So really what I look at is like, am I in a space where I'm enjoying my day? Am I in a space where I'm feeling joyful? And if I'm feeling joyful, that's successful to me. And it doesn't mean that I'm going to sit around and eat bonbons because that makes me feel joyful. I also have this drive to express my that creative spark, right? Like, I'm a person who's really driven to express. And so there's joy in that, joy in the expression.
I love it.
And that, to me, that's when I know I'm really on target, is if I'm working on things, I'm spending my time on things that make me feel joyful.
That's so good. And I will tell you, being from a different soul type, those would be a lot of mine too. So we're very similar in those thoughts, because I think it is
Yeah.
all about showing up every day in your energy. And, I talk about passion a lot, and, there's something powerful about being around people that have passion. They love what they're
Yeah.
doing, because that, I think, as you kind of touched upon that, I think that comes across in everything that you're doing. It's in your voice, it's in your actions, it's in your behavior, your just the way you stand. There's also something, very uncomfortable about being on the other side with somebody who's not
Yeah.
passionate and hating life, and they're just going through the motions. And so I think that
Yeah.
that's so very powerful what you said. And I just want to say, I totally am vibing with that.
Yeah.
Because that, to me, it's not about money. It's about being happy. I think all that other
Yeah.
stuff happens because you put yourself in alignment with the right kind of people. They show up in your
Yeah.
space when you are in that space. So
Exactly.
good. So good, Anne. All right. So I want to move to some fun. I'm looking at my notes. I'm like, where are my notes here? I want to move into some fun questions. It's so funny. I have to keep these here for like security blanket, just so I stay on track. But my favorite part of the podcast, not that everything, you've said so many incredible things, but I love to do the rapid fire. These are just fun questions to kind of humanize you outside of your great angelic soul stuff that we've been talking about. So, all right. So are you a morning or night person?
Morning, 100%.
Morning. Me
Yeah.
too. We have another another commonality.
Yeah.
All right. Cat or dog person?
Cat person.
Cat person.
And
Do you
I
have
like dogs, but I love other people's dogs.
do you have a cat?
We are about to get a cat. We are
Okay.
literally, I have been petless my whole adult life.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm finally, with being in quarantine and everything like that, my daughter's finally worn me down, and we're getting a cat, like any day now.
She's got you, Mom. You're getting the cat.
Yep.
This is like in my house, this is like an ongoing thing. Like when a pet passes, another one arrives, like all the time. Like, I'm not kidding you. It's like I have one kid left at home. My youngest, he's 16. And I'm not kidding you. It's like a pet goes, and somehow we end up, we've had like everything, like snakes and turtles and rats and like crabs. We've had everything. So I get it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Okay. So, and what's your favorite food, Anne?
Oh, probably soup. That sounds so weird, but it's like if I look at like what do I make all the time, I'm always making soup, to the point where it's like a joke in my family, me and soup. I'm always, and it's like it can be anything. I just
Like
yeah,
soup.
probably soup.
Yeah. Do you have any particular type of soup that you like to make, or you just like all
Every
kinds?
kind. That's probably why I like it, is because I
Yeah.
can say that and I don't have to tie myself down to one thing.
Right. And
Because
then you
soup
can
is
make
everything.
like
You
a
can,
lot of it and save it and eat it, you know?
yeah.
Yeah.
I have a huge pot of Hungarian mushroom soup on my stove right this minute.
That actually sounds pretty good.
It's incredibly good.
Yeah, it sounds good. All right, Anne, if you were stuck, this was one of my favorite questions. If you were stuck on a deserted island, you can eat, you've got your basic stuff. What would be
Okay.
the one thing that you would have to have in addition?
Oh my gosh. On a deserted island, the one thing in addition,
What would be important to you?
something really comfortable to sit on,
That's good.
you know? Yeah, because
That's
it's like then
different.
you could, yeah, I think you can do a lot with that. Yeah, you can make your own instruments, you can do all kinds of stuff, but you want something really comfortable to
That
sit
is
on. You feel
so
comfortable.
good. Look, this is the part. This is why I love this part of the podcast. We get like it's just the answers. That is like, I didn't even think about it. You're like something to sit on. You're like, you could create instruments. Like there was one of those downloads right now, right? That was a download.
Right,
I would
exactly.
not even been thinking about the instruments. I'd be thinking we're going to sit on the chair so I could just be comfortable because we're going to have nothing else and we're on this island. We got to have a chair, you know? But that was pretty clever. I like it. That was good.
I got a whole like caramba band going with
Yeah,
my
that's
comfortable
well.
chair.
And Chris back here, the guy that does my cameras in the entertainment industry, he probably liked that answer, right, Chris? That was pretty creative, wasn't it? He's like, yeah, that was pretty creative. I did not. That was a good one. I wouldn't have thought of it. All right, and if you could be any character or superhero for a day, what would you pick?
Oh, I think I would be that guy from The Matrix. The
Oh,
Niels or Niles or Neo,
yeah,
or what's his name? The main
Neo.
character,
Is that what
Keanu
it
Reeves'
is?
character.
Yeah, that's good.
I
I
do
haven't had that
him.
one either. Why would you pick that one? What draws you to that one?
I think it has such a strong it's a very very blatant spiritual metaphor, and it's all
Mm,
about waking up and seeing what's behind the veil.
that's good.
So to me, that is like Hollywood's version of an awakened soul.
Yeah, that's so good. I love this character question because like some people can pick something right away and it like resonates, and other people have to really think about it. And some people make them up. And so I think it's I always like to ask, like, like, why do you pick that one? Like, what is the quality that draws you to that? That's good.
Yeah.
It fits you. It's totally good. Totally good. So, Anne, if our audience wanted to learn a little bit more about what you've got going on, about these 7 soul types, where do we send them?
To my website, which is anntucker.com.
Okay.
So it's, and from there you can get to all of my various offerings. So the soul type work is called Business Energetics. So you'll see that. That's also has its own website, which is Biz Energetics. But go to anntucker.com. That's the landing page where you can get to everything from there.
Okay. And we'll make sure that when we get this put together and it goes out, we'll have it linked to your webpage and everything so that they know where to go. And then you can share it or do whatever you want with it at that point, too.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
All right. So this has been awesome. Thank you so much for being a guest. Thank you for sharing. This is so good. I think like I said, I think we could talk about this for a while. I definitely want to catch up with you again after so I can learn a little bit more about this. I'm going to get on your site. I looked at it a little bit today, but I want to do a little more research and stuff. So
fantastic.
Thank you for all of that. And so I do want to say to our listeners, of course, if you love our podcast, please be sure you give us a rating on iTunes and Facebook. Check out, we're also on Amazon and iHeart. And then hit that subscribe button on YouTube. And with that, I want to leave you guys with a couple final thoughts. Your story is your memory of those life experiences that made you who you are today. It consists of the best of times and the worst of times. And that is by Bill DeFore. Anger, deal with it, heal with it, stop it from killing you. I love that one. That totally fits with my whole soul type. Stop it from killing you. Move on. All right. And then in order to have success, you must start. And that start begins with the decision. All right. You guys take care of yourself. Be kind. And we'll see you next time.